What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Keep It Hoop YouTube channel. So, with the NBA trade deadline right around the corner, Zach Lowe of ESPN came out with an article this morning talking about some of the rumors surrounding the league. And I wanted to go over the article, giving my thoughts and takeaways and breakdowns of the rumors. Before we get started, though, if you could like, subscribe, share, and comment, would mean a lot. We are almost at 200 subscribers, so we are trying to power through to that. Also, follow us on our social media pages. Links will be in the description below. So, with that out the way, let's get started. Um, the thing they talk about first is just pretty much all the teams that fear the Nets and the Lakers trying to make last minute upgrades. The Heat have gotten Trevor Ariza, and the Bucks got PJ Tucker. And talks about how the Bucks are still looking to add one more piece to fill the void that DJ Augustine left, with a primary candidate being Austin Rivers. I think that makes sense a lot. Austin Rivers has been the odd man out in New York. When everyone's healthy, Alfred Payton, Derrick Rose, and Emmanuel quickly take up all of the point guard minutes. And Rivers will give Milwaukee some three-point shooting and some solid defense. I think he'd be a very solid player. Even an upgrade over DJ Augustine, arguably, especially given how their team is kind of built. I think DJ Augustine is someone who can shoot the three, but struggling a bit this year, and his lack of size hurt them defensively as well. The Heat remain active, it says. Keep tabs on Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry is interesting because, I mean, we'll go over this later on, but Toronto has said that there's rumors that Toronto don't want to trade him. And I think that doesn't make sense. And I can understand why the Heat are at least keeping tabs on him. He is an upgrade over Dragic, but I don't think, at least personally, he's an upgrade enough where it moves the needle worth giving up players for. I think that like Miami's also been linked to Victor Oladipo, and I think that's another guy that would take a few young players to get him, and I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think neither of those guys move the needle enough to where it gets them to the level of the Nets or the Lakers. And I think if I was them or their fans, I would much rather keep on or hang on to pieces like Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, Precious Achua, and Tyler Hero, and hope for a home run deal for someone like Bradley Beal. Um, the group of players, or I guess teams, that are in that category of teams looking to upgrade for the Nets and Lakers include the Nuggets, Blazers, Clippers, Sixers, and Mavericks as well. Um, I think Denver's an interesting one. They've been linked to a guy like Aaron Gordon, who I think would be really good for that team. I think he provides a lot of things that Jeremy Grant did for them last year, plus more. He's a guy I think that can get his own shot better than Grant could last year. I think he's a better playmaker, and if not better, at least on par as good of a defender as Jeremy Grant was for that team. Portland, I don't really know what moves they can make or are willing to make. Um, the Sixers are an interesting one. That's the team that I think a lot of people linked with Kyle Lowry. I think Kyle being from Philadelphia, it makes a lot of sense if he was to go there, just providing more toughness and experience for the playoffs. And I think that the Raptors would be able to get a guy like Tyrese Maxey. So I think that would be a really intriguing situation. Dallas, I think, was rumored to have been at least engaged in talks, or at least inquiring about Andre Drummond, which I don't like at all. I don't think that fit with him and Kristaps makes a lot of sense. I get offensively, it's not as bad because Kristaps can space the floor and he often does like to play out on that 3-point line. But I think Drummond and Kristaps is just disaster on defense. Yes, Drummond can protect the rim, and so can Kristaps. But Kristaps already has a bit of trouble keeping up with fours and fives, even sometimes because of his knee injuries. And at this rate, I don't think he gets to a point this year where he looks like the Kristaps of old, at least defensively. And if that's the case, I don't think they end up stopping anyone really. I think they can just pick on Kristaps if they have to play both those guys together, and neither of those guys are going to want to come off the bench. And I think Drummond for a long time has been, at least the last couple years, has been someone who his impact on the game isn't as good as his numbers suggest it would be. I think he has been more of a product of just getting good numbers on bad teams. And I have nothing against Andre Drummond. I think he's a solid player, but I do think that he gets overrated at times because of his numbers looking solid. So I don't think that Dallas going for a guy like Drummond would move the needle. But Mark Cuban is always up to something with his front office. So I wouldn't be surprised if they made a move, but I'm not sure what else they are looking at. Um, Two other teams, Boston and Golden State. Um, I don't think Golden State should make a move. I know they're interested in a guy like Bogdanovich, um, but I don't think that that makes too much sense. I guess like he could come off the bench like he has in at times during in Atlanta, but like next year you're gonna have Clay back. You're gonna have Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Green, and Wiseman. And if Bogdanovich can fit into that, I think maybe. But also, I don't know if Atlanta wants to part ways with him yet. I know he's been kind of a disappointment this season, but he injured his ankle, I think, really early on. And while Atlanta as a whole have been playing well recently, um, you know, I don't think I don't think the struggles earlier on in the season were enough for the Hawks to just give up on him yet. Um, and we talk about Boston. Boston's a team. I know I said this in Saturday's video, but they need some help badly, and I don't think they get enough pieces this offseason or this trade deadline that moves the needle to the point where they're a team that any team should be really scared of in the playoffs. I think that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have done a great job, and they're both really good, but they need help. And Aaron Gordon and Harrison Barnes, two guys who have been rumored with them, even a guy like Evan Fournier. I think all three of those guys do help the team, but not enough to a point where like I don't think any three of those guys address the key needs that Boston really need to address. I think that one Kemba Walker, I don't think any team takes him, but I don't think him in Boston just works anymore. I think that they need a primary playmaker, someone like a Rubio, someone who can really get other guys shots, a guy who can facilitate the offense, take some of the pressure away from Brown and Tatum. I think if it was a situation where they could get a guy like Rubio and then add maybe Aaron Gordon or Harrison Barnes, I think then that would be really good for them. But they just have too many holes, man, and I don't think Danny Ainge has been active enough or has just pressed the right buttons. Obviously, hasn't drafted too well. And I don't think like I said, Gordon, Harrison Barnes, I think they're really solid players, and I think they helped them a bit. But I don't think that it solves their playmaking issues or the fact that they haven't been able to find a starting center they like for 2-3 years now. It is interesting though, because again, Gordon and Harrison Barnes are similar players, a little bit different in the skill sets, but their positions are the same. And a lot of teams who are linked to one are going to be linked to the other. And I wouldn't be surprised if both of those guys got moved. John Collins is an interesting one because I thought it looked like the first 2 years that him in Atlanta was a good fit, especially with Trae Young. But John Collins and Trae Young kind of had that comments back and forth earlier in the season, and Atlanta doesn't seem to be willing to pay him what Collins wants or what his market's gonna, um, you know, suggest that he should get. So if that's the case, then maybe Atlanta just tries to find something where they don't lose him for nothing. If that's the case, though, I really don't know what the market is for like out there. Um, I don't think that he's a little different from Gordon and Barnes in the skill set, but his lack of experience can be made up for by the fact that a different team or different type of team might offer something for him just because of his youth and his upside that he still has. And it's not like even as he stands right now, he's a bad player by any means. The next most coveted player in a small slider wing who can defend at least some small forwards, which is why Norman Powell, Kelly Oubre Jr., Evan Fournier, and all have suitors. Um, I think Kelly Oubre is a candidate to get traded. I think he's the most likely one out of that bunch. Maybe Evan Fournier too, just because Orlando's kind of just had a lost year and they're probably starting to look towards that rebuild. I don't think they want to be in that perpetual 8, 9, 10 seed range where they're just barely making the playoffs every year but not getting a great draft pick. I think that they're ready to kind of turn the page and build around Cole Anthony and hopefully um Markel Fultz and Jonathan Isaac come back and they can just kind of build around that. If they can get in that lower if they can continue to slide in the standings and get one of the guys like Cade Cunningham, or you look at a guy like Jalen Suggs or Evan Mobley or I think Green would be great there, even in Kuminga. That could upstart their rebuild really quickly, and getting rid of a guy like Evan Fournier would definitely help them slide in the standings. So I think they're definitely going to look to trade away Evan Fournier and Aaron Gordon. um, I don't think Norman Powell is moving, because if the reports that they're not trading Kyle Lowry are true, it probably means that the Raptors want to remain somewhat relevant this year. I don't know why, because I think Kyle Lowry is out after this year anyways, and I think you tried to get the most you can out of him. Again, I think they could pry away a young piece like Tyrese Maxey away from Philadelphia. If that's the case, why lose Lowry for nothing when you're not going to win it all this year? But again, if the reports that they don't want to trade him are true, then I think that my belief would be that they won't trade Norman Powell either, unless some offer that blows them away comes, which I don't think it does. The Kings are open to listening on everybody aside from De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton, but it's going to take a lot to pry away Barnes and Richaun Holmes. Um, yeah, I mean, I think Richaun Holmes is another guy that's been included in a lot of rumors. I know the Hornets have been linked with him, and I don't know how strong those rumors will be now that LaMelo Ball is out and their playoff hopes might be dwindling. They do have Devontae Graham, who can kind of fill some of the holes that LaMelo leaves, and I know he's not the same exact type of player, but with Rozier and Gordon Hayward still playing really good basketball, maybe they think they can make the playoffs, and if that's the case, then adding a guy like Richaun Holmes could help. Um, Richaun Holmes has also been linked to Toronto, which would kind of go along with the rumors that they don't want to trade away Kyle Lowry. So if they again want to make some noise in the playoffs, I think Richaun Holmes provides a little bit different, of a play style than Chris Boucher does. So it would provide them some depth as well as some versatility in the way they can play or match up. So I think that would be interesting. But yeah, I mean, if I'm the Kings, yeah, I'm just selling everyone but Fox and Halliburton. I think those two have shown that Fox, I mean, besides his free throw shooting, which I think is a huge problem this year, somehow has gone way down. They've shown to be very compatible and capable of being the backcourt of the future. I love what Halliburton's done in his rookie season, and I think Fox continues to show that he can be, a very good player. So, I mean, the Buddy Hield rumors have also died down a bit, but it'll be interesting to see if a team will take him. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. If I'm Sacramento though, I'm looking to trade away as many pieces as possible. Um, Talks about Denver again, what we just talked about being a possible fit for Aaron Gordon. Zach Lowe makes another really good point, which is that Gordon's declining contract expires after next season, which is right in time for Michael Porter Jr.'s what should be a very big payday for him, and Denver's going to do everything they can to keep him. So it makes sense for their window as well. Um, and yeah, again, the fact that he would be replacing what they had in Jamie Grant last year, I think it makes the most sense. I would love to see that trade happen. Um, again, I said, could Zeke, Najee, Bobo, and RJ Hampton get that deal done? I think it does. I think it does with the first round pick. I think Orlando caves. I mean, again, there's going to be a lot of suitors, so it's not like they're like Orlando's the one that's going to hold the card, right? Like they're not in a hurry. Teams like Boston will have a lot to offer, and Boston has more to offer, I think, at least in terms of picks, right? So it kind of depends on what they want to give up, because I think Denver's core of young pieces might be more intriguing for Orlando to take. I think Bol still has a lot of potential, and so does RJ Hampton. Zeke Naji's already had a few really solid games this season, so I think that's not a bad package for a team like Orlando, who again, you're not winning anytime soon, and Aaron Gordon's going to be out after next season anyways. So I think that could get it done, and I think it would be a great fit for both sides, really. Lonzo Ball is an interesting one. Apparently Denver's interested in him. I guess he would work really well next to Jamal Murray, and he would fill the void that Gary Harris has left, because Gary Harris has just forgotten how to shoot, and he kind of just has fallen out. It just doesn't look like the way he used to, and who knows if he can pick it back up. But I mean, Lonzo Ball is playing really good right now, so a lot of teams are going to inquire about him. I'm sure the Knicks, I think, have also been linked with him. The Pelicans have kind of been inconsistent, or I guess in terms of rumors of how interested they are in moving Ball ahead of his restricted free agency. I don't think they want to pay him But the way he's been playing recently, maybe they take another look and prioritize keeping him instead. The Rockets and the Magic have had serious talks on a potential Gordon deal. I guess that makes sense. I mean, I don't like Aaron Gordon, John Wall, and Oladipo and Christian Wood for this year. Still, I mean, like with the loss streak they have, they're not getting into the playoffs, right? And Oladipo is probably out, so I don't know if Gordon for next season with Christian Wood and John Wall is too great. That being said, they will have a pretty high draft pick, so maybe they think that they can get Gordon for cheap enough where only having him for potentially 1 year is worth it, and maybe they think that they can convince him to stay as well. Not the worst deal. I just don't really know what Houston would give up. It would have to be draft compensations, because they don't really have too many young pieces. Um, but yeah, people I know they look bad because of the loss streak, but people forget that with a solid pick this upcoming draft, because I think this draft class is insane. Really high upside, just insane potential, and some really great guys in the draft. So they could potentially be solid again in a year or two with Christian Wood and John Wall playing solid basketball. So I don't think they're actually in a bad of a position as their loss streak would suggest. Minnesota and Portland have also been linked to Aaron Gordon. Minnesota with Gordon, how do I like? I mean, they're not going to win anything this year, right? So they have next year, and then whatever happens after Gordon's contract, or at least when he declines it. I don't know. It'll be interesting because Anthony Edwards has shown how good of a player he can be as of late. Cat is still Cat, and D'Lo just hasn't been healthy. But when he is healthy, he's still an above average good player. I don't know though. I mean he fills some of the needs. He offers some playmaking, some shooting, and some defense. But I do think that they have enough scorers. I mean I really don't think offense is the problem, and I think Aaron Gordon adds more offense than defense. Um, Portland though they don't have too many assets because Zach Collins, Rodney Hood, Nasir Little. I don't think they part with Anthony Simmons, especially how young and how early they took him. I think that they would prefer to keep him as kind of like their own, not even project, because he's had solid games and we've already seen he can be a solid player. But I don't think they'd want to trade Anthony Simons because I do think they believe in him a lot. Um, and besides that, they don't have a lot of pieces and they do have a lot of small forwards already. So I really don't think they go after Aaron Gordon. Kelly Oubre is an interesting one because I don't think the Warriors, I mean, they talk about here, the Warriors aren't too much in a rush to trade him, but I'm sure, are also aware that they're not winning anything this year, right? So if they feel like, or if they can get an offer where it helps them in the future, I think they should take it. Again, I don't know what Oubre's role will be on this team once Clay comes back, and even if, especially if they're interested in a guy like Bogdanovich, right? So I think Oubre still provides enough shooting and defense where a lot of teams will be interested. And Golden State has to really ask themselves what kind of team they want to field past this year, because again, they already have their starting five set, right? With Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Green, and Wiseman. How do they want the rest of their team to fill out? If they think that Oubre is fine coming off the bench long term for a winning team, which they obviously the Warriors believe they can be with Clay, maybe then they don't trade him and they just try to build out the rest of the team, because I do think that that's still a really good team when healthy. But if Oubre either doesn't want to come off the bench, or they don't love what they've had so far this season, or they think they can get multiple pieces for that bench, then maybe they go that route. That is an interesting thing to keep an eye on, because I think Oubre can still be a really solid piece if moved, for a team that is trying to contend this year, or a team that's good trying to get to that next level. Again, so this is the Kyle Lowry situation, right? He is, again, it says here, the rare player who might be able to swing championship bounce. I think if he were to go to Philadelphia, I think that would be huge for Philadelphia. His shooting, his defense, his leadership, his experience would be huge for that team. Now, the thing here, right? The Toronto media suggested the Raptors are unlikely to trade Lowry, including one report that the Raptors have straight up told suitors they will not deal him. I have not heard that from league sources. Other teams tell the ESPN that the Raptors have indeed not been aggressive engaging on Lowry talks. So I think that's the biggest if during this whole thing. I think most people expect Aaron Gordon, Evan Fournier, some of the other guys we talked about, Harrison Barnes, to move. Kyle Lowry is the one that seemed like he's not on the move, but with trade deadline stuff, you just never say never, right? Been plenty of times where teams have said we're not trading this said player, and he gets traded, right? Guys like Blake Griffin, very famous situations where it just didn't end well, right, for the player, and they get traded. Um, Again, I don't know why Toronto's so, or I guess if the reports are true, would be so hell bent on keeping Kyle. I think that they're not winning. They're not even getting to the conference finals this year. Let's face it. And if he's leaving in the offseason, let's get something out of him. Like I don't know why they're trying to hold on and kind of play this out. Um, if I was Toronto, I would trade him, but who knows? I mean, um, the Raptors are solid at full health, threat to win a first round series. They have barely been at full health, have dropped to 17 and 25, 3 games outside the play-ins. Yeah, I mean, again, if they have, like it says here, Pascal, OG, and Fred VanVleet coming back next year, very solid core of two-way players, right? So if they can build around that with a guy like Maxey or whoever else they might be able to get in a Kyle Lowry trade, I would just do that. I would just start planning for next year, let it go. And if Norman Powell, if you can sell high on him right now and continue to build around that core, I would personally do that. 'Cause there's just no way they win it all this season, right? So, I kind of wish they would because I would love to see Lowry in Philadelphia, and then I think Toronto's rebuild, not even a full rebuild, but kind of restructuring of that team would go a lot smoother and faster and better if they were willing to let go of both Lowry and um, and Norman Powell. The Pacers are another interesting team because with the way that the Eastern Conference is, like it's just so crowded that one win streak can get you to the fifth or fourth seed. Um, they Miles Turner, I feel like has been in trade rumors for like 3-4 years now, and like I mean that's pretty much like after his first season, and especially with the way that Domantas Sabonis has been playing, the Pacers obviously prioritize him over Turner. And there's been skepticism around the league, and even I'm one of those guys who I would say I don't know how good they can be with both Turner and Sabonis. I think if Sabonis was to be the full-time center, their defense would definitely get worse. But I think that they could do something if they were to get something for Turner. Um, the Hornets are a team that are interested in a center. I know they Again, Rashawn Holmes is a guy we talked about them being interested in. Do they want to go after a guy like John Collins or Miles Turner? We'll see. John Collins is interesting because, right, he hasn't, like, Atlanta hasn't really committed to him. And they're in a weird situation now because I'm pretty sure Atlanta doesn't want to pay John Collins, but with the way they're playing now, if you trade away John Collins and they don't make the playoffs, it's going to look real bad, right? Because you come out and say that you want to make the playoffs this season, you make all these moves, you struggle at the beginning, you finally start playing well, and then you trade one of your better players. Awful look to your franchise, to the fan base, to Trae Young, to other players. So I don't think they trade John Collins at this point, and I guess they'll cross that bridge with the with his contract when they get there. Um, Zach Lowe brings up an interesting proposition of the Bulls calling about Turner. They're starting Thaddeus Young, um, which is a surprise. I didn't think he'd get this much playing time when the season started, but the Bulls have remained competitive. Getting a guy like Evan Turner would do really, really big things for that team, and just I think it would improve their playoff chances a lot. The Bulls haven't been to the playoffs in a while. I think along with their fast-paced offense led by Zach LaVine, getting a guy like Turner would do just wonders for their defense and really help out the team as a whole. Thaddeus Young is having a really good season, but I think if you can bring him off the bench, it would really help solidify that second unit as well. So that's an interesting trade rumor, or I guess proposition that I hadn't even thought about, but I would actually like that a lot. I don't know what they would have to give up to get him. And speaking of the Bulls, can they get someone off of Lauren Markkinen? I think Markkinen falls in the same category as John Collins for the Hawks. I think he's a solid player with good numbers, but I don't think the team loves them enough to necessarily want to sign them to the contract they're going to get, or the market that they're gonna have, right? Because I think that, and that's not to say that they won't sign those guys, because I think they might still re-sign those guys just because either the lack of options they have or because they feel like they would have to and they don't want to lose them for nothing. Losing a rookie you signed who's having a solid season or solid career for nothing always feels bad, and it never sends a good message to the fans. So I think that there's still a chance that the Hawks re-sign Collins and that the Bulls re-sign Markkanen. But deep inside, if you had to ask them and told them to be 100% honest with themselves, I don't think they're in love with paying Markkanen and Collins the amount of money that they will probably get, or ask for. Um, Now the Knicks are another really intriguing team because, being a Knicks fan myself, I would prefer if they didn't do anything crazy. I know they have $15 million in cap space right now that they are trying to use. I know Thibodeau, Leon Rose, and just pretty much the whole organization wants to see them make the playoffs. But I don't want a situation where they are risking their future to get into the playoffs and bow out of the first round. I just don't think it's worth it. I know you want to get your guys experience in the playoffs. I think guys like Mitchell Robinson, Emmanuel Quickly, and RJ Barrett would all do really well getting some playoff experience. That being said, it's not worth having to invest too much into it. Victor Oladipo, I know, is a name that has been floated around the Knicks for a while now, and I get that it would help them make the playoffs. I don't know if it really helps them get out of the first round, because if they make it, right, you're still looking at having to be either Philadelphia, Brooklyn, or Milwaukee, and that's not happening, right? I don't think the Knicks get higher than that in the standings. And the Rockets want a first round pick. The Knicks better not give up their first round pick this year, either of them. Maybe the Mavs, but I still hope not. Um, and maybe the Rockets just decrease their asking price because Oladipo is asking for a lot of money this summer, and he's out of there anyways. So if if you're Houston, you don't want to lose him for nothing. My fear of getting Oladipo is that not only we get him for this year and give up too much, but even if we don't give up too much, that we overpay him in the summer, and now we're stuck in this limbo of, again, being a solid team but not being that, a contender, and we're just wasting money and time again. So that's my fear. There's, I think, a couple guys that the Knicks could move. Elfrid Payton, who I want to be moved just so it frees up more minutes for Emmanuel Quickly. And that's nothing against Elfrid Payton. I've probably said this probably like 4 or 5 times on this YouTube channel or even on our podcast, but I have nothing against Elfrid Payton. I just feel like he should be on a different team that has more minutes for him, either off the bench or just a more defined role for him. I don't like him as a starting point guard for the Knicks. I know Thibodeau loves him, but I just don't think he just goes along with our timeline. Kevin Knox has kind of fallen out, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the Knicks can get like a second round pick or something out of him, and he can find an opportunity somewhere else. Austin Rivers can't get traded, but if they can buy him out, I know that Milwaukee is a team that is interested in him. I think that, while it's just rumored, I think that would be a really good fit. They need someone to take the backup point guard minutes that DJ Augustine used to have. And I think that Austin Rivers would be perfect in that role. You sacrifice some shooting. I think Augustine's a better shooter, but Rivers definitely gives you better defense, and I think he would be a pretty good fit for Milwaukee. A lot of possibilities. The big names probably won't get moved, right? No Beal, and the Harden trade already happened early this year, but still some really solid mid level guys like Harrison Barnes and Aaron Gordon. I think that 3-4 position, that the wing position, is one with the most abundance of guys who could be traded. So there's definitely a lot of things that could go on. And a lot of the eyes are, I think, going to just be on those teams that are looking to give themselves a chance against Brooklyn and the Lakers, right? So, how are teams going to position themselves to be able to compete with them come playoff time? But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment. We'll be back later on in the week with more videos, so stay tuned for that. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys.